Daniel's life had always been defined by the whisper of fear, the fear of failure, rejection, and the vast unknown. In the quiet, unassuming town of Oakridge, dreams were small and ambition was a luxury few dared to indulge in. The town's narrow streets and faded brick buildings, worn by time and tradition, seemed to mirror the subdued hopes of its inhabitants. For Daniel, every day was a repetition of the last: a quiet morning at a modest home, a hesitant journey to the local library where he worked, and evenings spent in solitude with his worn books, each page a reminder of the world he felt too timid to join. From an early age, Daniel had learned that success belonged to those who were fearless. The stories whispered in Oakridge told of brave souls who ventured far from the safety of their hometown, conquering challenges that the average person wouldn't dare to face. In his heart, however, Daniel believed that he was not one of those individuals. Every opportunity that beckoned was quickly dismissed, each one overshadowed by the paralyzing grip of self-doubt. Then there was Maya, a vibrant presence amidst the town's subdued palate. Maya radiated confidence and a relentless spirit that dared to dream beyond the confines of Oakridge. Her laughter was infectious, and her unwavering belief in the potential of those around her made her a beacon of hope in a community steeped in caution. One crisp morning, as the early light painted the streets in soft hues of golden gray, Maya's challenge shattered the quiet monotony of Daniel's life. "Daniel," she said, her eyes alight with determination, "why do you hide behind your fears? There's a public speaking competition next month at the community center. I know you've got a story worth sharing. It's time you stepped out of the shadows." Her words echoed in his mind long after they were spoken. The thought of standing before a crowd, bearing his soul to the world, filled him with dread. Yet beneath the terror, a spark of possibility began to glow. For the first time, Daniel questioned whether his fear was a prison he had built himself, a chain that could be broken if he dared to try. After countless sleepless nights and an endless internal debate, Daniel made a decision that would forever alter the course of his life. With trembling hands and a pounding heart, he signed up for the competition. It was a silent act of rebellion, a quiet defiance against the beliefs that had confined him for so long. In the weeks that followed, Daniel threw himself into preparation. In front of a cracked mirror in his modest bedroom, he practiced his speech until his voice, once a timid whisper, began to gain strength. Every recitation was a battle against the inner critic that mocked his every word. Yet even as small victories emerged, a sentence delivered without a stutter, a momentary flash of clarity that banished the specter of doubt, there were setbacks too. The memory of past failures crept in unbidden, and the fear that had always lurked in the recesses of his mind threatened to overwhelm him. It was during one of these moments of quiet despair that Daniel encountered Mr. Elias. Every afternoon, without fail, the old man sat on a weathered park bench near the library. His presence was serene, his eyes reflecting years of untold stories and silent battles. Intrigued by this quiet figure, Daniel began to strike up conversations, initially about trivial matters, then gradually about the weight that lay heavy on his heart. One chilly evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast long shadows over the park, Daniel found himself pouring out his fears to Mr. Elias. "I'm scared," he confessed in a voice barely louder than the rustling leaves. "I'm scared of failing, of being rejected, of stepping into a world that might not want me." Mr. Elias regarded him with a gentle intensity. "Fear," he said softly, "is nothing but an illusion, a story we tell ourselves to keep from taking risks. I, too, was once imprisoned by fear. I built walls around my heart so high that I nearly forgot how to live. But I eventually learned that the only thing holding me back was the belief that fear was real." Those words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with Daniel. Over the coming weeks, Mr. Elias became an unexpected mentor, guiding him through a labyrinth of self-doubt with cryptic advice and timeless wisdom. Their conversations stretched late into the night under a tapestry of stars as the old man recounted battles fought in the silence of one's mind, and the liberating moment when he realized that the true enemy was not the world outside, but the limitations one imposed on oneself. Emboldened by this new perspective, Daniel embarked on a journey of transformation. Each day was a test, a series of trials that stretched his courage to its breaking point. In the quiet corners of Oakridge, he practiced in front of small, willing audiences, stumbling through his words and rising again with renewed determination. Every minor victory, from delivering a complete thought without faltering to receiving a smile of encouragement from Maya, chipped away at the walls he had built around his potential. As the day of the competition approached, the whole town seemed to hold its breath. The community center, usually a place for modest gatherings, buzzed with an electric anticipation. Daniel felt the weight of expectation acutely. The collective hope of a community that rarely dared to dream mingled with his own trembling determination. On the morning of the event, Daniel arrived at the center with a mix of anxiety and resolve. The backstage area was a flurry of activity, nervous competitors pacing, final adjustments to costumes, and a palpable tension that filled the air. Finding a quiet corner, Daniel closed his eyes and recalled Mr. Elias's parting words. "Fear is just an illusion. It holds no power over you unless you let it." Clutching that truth like a lifeline, he stepped onto the stage. The bright spotlight enveloped him, casting long, dramatic shadows on the walls. The murmur of the audience faded into a distant hum as he began to speak. His voice, though still trembling at the edges, steadily grew in confidence as he shared the story of his journey. A tale of struggle, small victories, and the transformative power of confronting one's deepest fears. The crowd listened, rapt and silent, as Daniel bared his soul. Each word was a step further from the shackles of his past, a declaration that he was no longer the timid boy who once hid from the world. For a fleeting moment, as the rhythm of his speech took hold, Daniel felt invincible, an embodiment of the very courage he had long believed was reserved for others. Then, in the midst of his crescendo, the unexpected happened. The brilliant lights overhead flickered violently, plunging the stage into a momentary twilight. A sudden, chilling gust of wind swept through the auditorium, as if the very air had turned against him. From the back of the room, a shadow moved, slipping silently, almost imperceptibly, through the crowd. Before anyone could react, a series of cryptic words flashed across the screen behind Daniel, disrupting his narrative with a message that cut straight to the core of his hidden insecurities. For an instant, time seemed to slow. The room fell into an eerie silence as the audience exchanged confused glances, and Daniel's heart pounded so fiercely he could barely hear his own thoughts. The message, a jumble of words that hinted at a truth too daunting to comprehend, hovered in the air like an unwelcome specter. Was it a mere technical glitch, or was there something more sinister at play? And why did the message seem to echo the very fears Daniel had fought so hard to overcome? Caught in a maelstrom of uncertainty, Daniel found himself at a crossroads. The surge of confidence that had begun to take root now battled with a renewed sense of dread, with every fiber of his being urging him to reclaim the stage and continue his narrative of redemption. A nagging voice whispered caution, daring him to uncover the mystery behind the shadow and the cryptic message that had so abruptly shattered his moment of triumph. As the auditorium's lights flickered back to life and the murmurs of the audience grew louder with curiosity, Daniel's eyes darted toward the back of the room. There in the dim glow, the shadow lingered, a silent, enigmatic figure that seemed to beckon him into an unknown realm of danger and revelation. The contrast between the roaring applause and the creeping dread in his heart was stark, and in that charged moment, Daniel realized that his battle was far from over. Standing at the precipice of a destiny that promised both redemption and peril, Daniel took a hesitant step forward. His decision hung in the balance. Should he summon the courage to continue his speech and defy the disruptive forces that threatened to unravel his newfound strength? Or should he dare to delve into the mystery that now intertwined with his own battle against fear? As he opened his mouth to speak once more, a final deafening crash of thunder resonated through the hall, and the stage was once again cast into darkness. The audience gasped, and the silence that followed was thick with uncertainty and foreboding. In that suspended moment, with the fate of his journey hanging in the balance, Daniel's eyes locked on the lingering shadow, a silent promise that his true test had only just begun. What was the origin of the cryptic message? Who or what was behind that shadow, and how did it connect to the demons Daniel had long battled? The answers lay shrouded in darkness, waiting to be unraveled. The stage was still shrouded in darkness, the echo of thunder mingling with the rapid beat of Daniel's heart. For a long, suspended moment, uncertainty reigned. The audience, caught between shock and anticipation, sat in an eerie silence. But in that very stillness, something shifted within Daniel, a spark of resolve that had been kindled throughout his journey. He remembered Mr. Elias's words. "Fear is nothing but an illusion. It holds no power over you unless you let it." Those words, spoken softly on countless starlit evenings, now became his lifeline. Daniel drew a deep breath, feeling the tremors of his anxiety settle into a quiet determination. The mysterious shadow that had slid through the back of the auditorium, the cryptic message that had flashed on the screen, it all merged into a single, haunting symbol of every doubt and insecurity he had ever harbored. With a steadying exhale, Daniel raised his head. The stage lights flickered back to life, bathing him in a warm, resolute glow. His eyes scanned the room and found the lingering shadow, a dark wisp near the edge of the stage. It was as if his internal demons had taken a tangible form, an echo of every "I can't" and every "I'm not enough" he had ever whispered to himself. For one heartbeat, Daniel considered retreating, letting the fear paralyze him once more. But the memory of Maya's unwavering faith in him and Mr. Elias's transformative wisdom surged forward. He knew that to let fear win was to surrender the very essence of who he wanted to be. Stepping forward, his voice rang out, firm, clear, and defiant. "Tonight, I reclaim my story," Daniel declared, his words slicing through the residual silence. "For too long, I have allowed fear to dictate my life. But I see now that fear is nothing but a shadow, a story we tell ourselves. It is not real, and it holds no power over us." As he spoke, the cryptic words that had earlier marred the screen began to dissolve, pixel by pixel, into a gentle cascade of light. The shadow at the edge of the stage quivered, then receded, as though it had never been more than a mirage conjured by his own self-doubt. With every sentence, every breath of courage, Daniel felt the weight of his past begin to lift. The applause from the audience, tentative at first, swelled into an overwhelming chorus of approval and encouragement. Yet even as the technical glitch of the evening was resolved and the stage returned to its familiar brightness, a lingering mystery tugged at the edges of Daniel's consciousness. Who or what had orchestrated that disruption? Was it a mere malfunction, or had it been a final test from the universe, challenging him to confront the very essence of his inner fears? The questions danced in his mind, mingling with a sense of profound clarity. It was then that Mr. Elias, his mentor and guide, stepped quietly from the wings, his eyes glinting with a knowing smile. "Fear will always attempt to find you," Mr. Elias murmured, standing beside Daniel as if to say that the night's events were only part of a larger, ongoing journey. "But it is only a story, a series of fleeting images. The truth is that the power lies within you, in every choice you make to rise above it." In that moment, Daniel understood that the shadow was not an external force at all, but a reflection of his own unresolved fears. The cryptic message was simply a catalyst, an alarm bell prompting him to see that his real battle had never been against something outside of him, but rather against the limitations he had allowed to govern his life. With renewed strength, Daniel resumed his speech, weaving his personal revelations into a narrative of hope and transformation. He spoke of his childhood in Oakridge, of a town that prized caution over ambition, and of the countless times he had hidden his dreams behind a facade of timidity. He recounted his struggle to find his voice and the pivotal moment when Maya dared him to step onto this very stage. Each word was imbued with the realization that the walls he had built were not made of brick and mortar, but of fears that could be dismantled piece by piece. As Daniel's story unfolded, the audience was spellbound. They were no longer merely spectators. They were participants in a profound journey of self-discovery. His words resonated with anyone who had ever doubted their worth, anyone who had ever felt trapped by the invisible chains of fear. The once tentative murmur of applause transformed into a thunderous ovation as he reached the crescendo of his speech. The light shone brightly, and for the first time in his life, Daniel felt truly seen, not as a timid young man burdened by insecurities, but as someone who had found the courage to challenge his own narrative. The auditorium was filled with a palpable energy, a shared recognition that the battle against fear was universal, yet conquerable. And in that shared moment of triumph, the mysteries of the night began to resolve themselves. The lingering shadow was gone, the cryptic message of memory fading into insignificance. What remained was the undeniable truth that fear is merely an illusion, a phantom that dissipates in the light of courage and self-belief. Daniel stepped away from the stage with a heart full of hope and a mind unburdened by the ghosts of his past. He had broken free from the prison of his own making and emerged into a future rich with possibility. As the final applause echoed in his ears, Daniel looked out over the crowd and smiled. This was not the end of his journey, but rather the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where every day was an opportunity to redefine what was possible. With his mentor, Mr. Elias, and his steadfast friend Maya by his side, he knew that the path ahead, while uncertain, was also full of promise. Now that you've journeyed with Daniel through his battle against fear, ask yourself, what illusions are holding you back? It's time to break the chains of your own self-doubt. Embrace your inner strength, step into the light, and redefine your story. Remember, the only limits that exist are the ones we accept. So dare to dream, dare to act, and dare to be unstoppable. Share your thoughts, subscribe for more inspiring stories, and let's continue this journey together.